Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Life Inner Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life Inner Show, we help people make more, work less, and live better. I am joined by my Polish co-host, Polish Peter. What's up, bro?
Not much, man. Sounds like this is going to be a savage podcast, man.
It is, man. This is, I'm super excited about our guest. His name is Josh Tyler. He is a former professional MMA fighter, which he now has really embarked on this really, really cool journey. He runs something called Savage Gentleman, and I can't wait to dive into what exactly this is. And by the way, if you're a woman, this is still 100% relevant for you. Everything we talk about in the episode is going to be relevant for you as well. Josh is just, his audience is men. And so you can see where this is going to apply to you.
Yeah. And I love this episode because of the fact that the subject matter we talked about, right? You got two polar opposites, savage and gentleman. And how do you actually make that work for any man in any regard for that? And so for women listening to this podcast, and if you got a man in your life or whatever the case may be, you might see a different perspective on this particular episode to see how to have conversations and those kinds of things. And, you know, we have families, we're fathers, and we're, you know, uncles and men and husbands and all those kinds of things. I love this particular episode. One thing that I put out a challenge on this episode. So listen closely. It's towards the beginning of the episode. Put on a challenge. If you get the challenge, you're going to get a gift. All right. So let's go into this.
Here we go. Here's our episode with Josh Tyler. Josh, what's up, man? Welcome to the Life Inner Show.
Hey, man. Happy to be here.
Dude, this is awesome. Peter, I first met Josh. Josh, how long ago that Mike had us do that? It was like at least 8 years ago, 6 years ago. I don't know.
It's got to be because I had my first fight in 2008. And so this was pretty shortly after that, you know, so it's been, so it's probably like 2009-ish.
Okay. So Peter, I don't think I ever told you the story. So a buddy of ours, a mutual friend, was filming a music video or footage for music video. And in this video, there was a fight scene between me. He asked me to be, and then Josh. Now, this is a funny thing. Josh is like an actual real life MMA fighter. And then you have me. and so like,
oh, you know what? We should just do this podcast just on this from now on. Yeah. Show how you kick this butt, Josh.
But listen, here's the irony is Mike, our friend Mike, wanted me to beat up Josh. And like, so Josh, So like,
that doesn't look realistic to me at all.
Well, what's even funnier is like somehow I was the antagonist. So Jason's like the good guy. He's the hero, right? And what you can't see on the screen here, but he's twice my size. Like I'm not a big dude, you know, I mean, I'm in pretty good shape, but I fought at 145 and 155. Right now I might be pushing 170. And at the time, if I recall, Jason was pretty big into bodybuilding. And looks like he still knows where the gym is today. So it's like, oh yeah, this bad, you know, somehow you were supposed to be the underdog looking like towering above me.
I know that. Yes. We have to talk to like the casting on this issue because it seems like...
listen, I have a request for all the listeners. First person who finds a clip on this somewhere on the intranets, I don't know.
What is the internet? I don't even know if that's a thing. Like, okay.
It's all of the interwebs.
Right.
Yeah. There we go.
When you combine all the interwebs, then you get the internets.
I'll send you a free Life on their book if you find that clip.
Well, and so that's how I met Josh. Some hilarious footage from that. And Josh, you actually had a whole lot less facial hair back then as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say they may not recognize me. I was much less hairy at the time. I've essentially since then I've gone full feral. I basically live in the woods now. And then occasionally come into civilization to do some podcasts or, you know, whatever else is necessary.
All right. This is going to be a good podcast. I already have a feeling about this.
Well, so here's the thing. So Peter, then, you know, I hadn't kept in touch with Josh much over the years. And then we connect on Facebook, and he runs a group called the League of Savage Gentlemen, which I found, by the way, Josh, like what a descriptive, unifying, Like, I mean, I think you really just hit it on the head. Tell us like how this whole thing developed and how, and where it's at now and where, what you're doing with it.
Yeah. So, wow. How far back do you want to go? I mean, we can get really into the wickets on this thing, or I can kind of give you the brief overview.
Well, so you were fighting.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that?
Yeah. So as I was fighting, I met a girl, and as things tend to progress from there, we got married and continued fighting, turned pro, moved out to Utah, to Salt Lake City to advance my fighting career. And not long after that, along came a little girl, which actually today is her birthday. She just turned 7 today.
Oh,
which is
happy
amazing,
birthday,
man.
Yeah. So upon that, the realization of, hey, things are kind of serious now. I can't, I need to have some other options on the table aside from just being a fighter, because if you know much about the fight game, it's not the most lucrative occupation. You can make some money at it, but you don't really get into it to be, filthy, stinking rich. You do it because you want to compete. You've got something to prove, any number of reasons. Money is rarely the one, because such a small percentage of guys really get to that level of financial stability, So, okay, I probably need to think about something to supplement. And also, I won't be able to fight forever. What am I going to do next? So I ended up linking up with some folks who were in the survival preparedness space. It was a company called Ready Man, and they were at the time connected to Black Rifle Coffee. So all these guys are mixed in together under one roof. And I got introduced to them, saw what they were doing, and it's like, man, this is really cool. I love everything about what you have going on. If there's any way I can help contribute, I'm here, let me know. And as it turned out, they wanted a guy to help train them, as kind of do some team workouts. Well, I can do that. So put together a gym, put guys through workout, and then their companies just took off. So then no one had time to work out anymore. So I'm just showing up, twiddling my thumbs, and they're like, hey, can you edit video? I guess I could try. So, I started doing some content stuff for them. And along that time, I noticed that there had been something missing, and I didn't realize, right? I for fighting, I was so focused on my savage side, right? I was really just singularly honed in on destruction, right? My goal was to beat up another human, and everything I did centered around that. When I started being a little bit more creative, making videos, I realized, oh man, there's a side of me that I had neglected for, man, I didn't know how long. As a kid, I loved to sing, I loved to write, I loved art and music. I like to sketch, I like to do all of these very creative things. And I completely put that on the shelf and focus on destruction. And so it got me to thinking, it's like, man, okay, I had the savage side very well down, but I had neglected my gentleman. And as I started talking with other people, I recognized that people have generally done pursued one to the exclusion of the other. And I think eventually which is fine for a time, but we're a multifaceted being. We're not one dimensional. And if we neglect one side, we wake up one day and recognize, man, I did all the things I thought I was going to do, but I'm still not happy with my life. And I didn't even realize that there was something missing until I got a taste of it. It was like, oh, that's why I felt off. I was doing everything I was supposed to do in my career. I was winning fights. I was winning belts. I was advancing and progressing. And yet there was still something missing. I still wasn't feeling fulfilled, and I didn't understand that. Having this opportunity to create showed me that, oh, this was the aspect. So I kind of hung on to that idea for a while and kicked it around with some people, and the term savage gentleman evolved. We ended up turning the notion into a podcast because we wanted to talk about things that were broader than just survival and preparedness. I think there's a lot to being a man than just those facets. And there's a lot of guys that I think, again, get very focused on one thing, and they miss the forest through the trees, so to speak. And so we started up the podcast called Savage Gentleman, and that gave us a license to talk about pretty much anything under the sun. and really started gaining some headway with that. And I spoke to one of my buddies who was a coworker of mine for that company. I was like, hey, I think there's potential here. I think we could turn this into something bigger. And so we kind of put together a plan to create products that would fulfill the needs of both a savage and a gentleman, because that was also a niche that we noticed was missing, right? The higher end quality products seem, for guys that actually go out and do stuff, right? You have the Gucci stuff. You've got really, really high end clothing, but guys that are wearing that aren't changing their own oil. And I fully believe that guys who go out and, can till up a garden can also dress nice, look nice, and give a crap about their appearance and have some intentionality. So that was kind of the focus of our product line. And then we also realized, well, okay, there needs to be more than just selling things. How can we actually make a contribution? Because we're seeing every time we talk to people, this idea really resonating. How do we spread this? Because we found that, and you guys maybe have seen this in your experience, the world is lacking savage gentlemen. And this was kind of a quote that I came up with. It's like, the world is full of savages and gentlemen, but it's rare to find the man who can be both. And that, the idea of a Renaissance man, a well-rounded individual that possesses lots of skills in a lot of different areas. And so we wanted to revitalize that. But to do that, you can't just sell people clothing or wallets or punching bags or whatever. You've got to spread the message. And so we did that with the podcast. And then we developed the League of Savage Gentlemen as a closed Facebook group that you mentioned, as a place for guys to actually have some conversation, because to me, that's where it starts, right? We have to talk about these things. And too many guys are kind of afraid to admit when they need help, afraid to admit where they have weakness. And there's a lot of dudes that just don't have a circle of people, of like-minded individuals, guys that they can, go to get advice. And so that became the impetus of developing this league.
Dude, that's awesome, man. So I want to unpack some of these things, because I think you hit a lot of fantastic points.
Yeah, sorry, that was a lot.
No, man, that was phenomenal. That was awesome. And I found myself listening, and the first thing that really struck me here is that I feel like a lot of us have this balance. And you mentioned, it was interesting to me that you also mentioned destruction versus creation, because those are diametrically opposed.
Yes.
But yet together, they give you a much more comprehensive encapsulation of what we're all kind of designed to do in the different parts that almost all of us have to some extent. And maybe we focus, like you did, on one specific part of this that just by nature ends up neglecting other parts of our lives. And I think by analogy, we do this a lot. Like someone who focuses a whole lot on their health could be missing out on their intellectual growth or the relationships or some other part. So talk a little bit about how does somebody who's, and then you probably also have people that feel like they're kind of stuck in the middle. They're like in this cloudy area where they don't know, they haven't gone far down one path, and they haven't mastered anything or really dove into anything. Can you talk a little bit about that for someone that either A, has found themselves really far along one path, and how do they start to become more aware of the other things going on? Or two, what about somebody who like really, they're not a savage or a gentleman, right? What does that person do?
Are you speaking for yourself? Like you're neither savage nor gentleman?
I'm getting advice for myself right now.
Yeah, I think you're speaking for yourself though, dude.
I think my philosophy, is like, I'm not here to tell anyone how to live their life, because I'm nowhere near qualified to do that. Right. I'm still trying to figure this thing out for my own self. And I have some experiences that have lended me some measure of insight and perspective, but man, I can't write a prescription to anyone to like, here you go, do this, fix your life. What I can point out though, is if someone is in a place where they're looking around and maybe they aren't as happy as they thought they would be, or they haven't arrived to the place where they thought they should at this point in their life, which, we can talk about the notion of arrival is kind of a trap in of itself. But aside from that, if you're looking around and things aren't, quite up to what you had hoped, then my suggestion would be, well, if you're continuing to do all the same things, maybe, and are still getting the same results, perhaps you should consider some other things, right? So if you are a full-blown gentleman, right, and you've got the business and the career, and you're very refined and sophisticated, you've got that, you checked all the boxes, the house, the job, the wife, the kids, and everything, and yet, man, you're still, for whatever reason, miserable. When's the last time you got your hands dirty? When's the last time you were out in the cold? When's the last time you got your heart rate up and breathe and were breathing hard and the blood was pumping? When's the last time you faced an element of fear and danger, right? When's the last time you embraced your savage component? Because that, to me, would be my recommendation of like, all right, well, you've mastered this other area. And if it's working for you, great, keep doing it. But if it isn't, don't keep doing more of the same thing. I would point you in to pursue almost the opposite direction. Go out, get punched in the face. And I see so many guys that, are making probably far more money than I'll ever make, and yet are completely miserable. And these guys are, contemplating some really grim notions. And again, I can't say that I have the solutions for that, but doing more of the same thing probably isn't going to be the answer. Doing something, like you mentioned, diametrically opposed, right? Something that you either have never done or haven't done in a very long time, perhaps since you were a kid or a young boy. That would be my advice in that scenario.
Got it. Well, man, and does being let's just talk about this word savage for a second.
Yeah.
Do you believe that the concept and the term, as we're referring to it, means like a strength, like a personal resolution, a determination, a discipline? Is this how you would think of the word as savagery? Yeah.
And I mean, I think that those are accurate. I think you can be a gentleman and still be disciplined. I think that can be kind of an overarching theme. To me, the notion of savagery is the ability, the willingness and ability. People often have the willingness, but they don't necessarily have the ability because they haven't practiced it or trained it to do whatever's necessary to get the job done. Right. Yeah. That to me, in its most distilled form, is savagery. And we can extrapolate on that, and we can talk about, some more primitive and primal concepts. But in my mind, those are just a means to an end. Those skills allow us to get the job done no matter what the circumstances are, right? And I think that that's a very important skill that, since we haven't had to use it for most of our lifetimes, we've lost touch with. There was a time when, a man could do himself pretty much anything he needed to do. He didn't have to rely on anyone else for anything. We think about guys who, ventured out into the world. You can evoke the vision of Vikings. You can evoke the vision of settlers crossing the Atlantic. We can think about pioneers heading across, to settle the West. And you can pick, examples of savagery and self-reliance and capability throughout history and all cultures, right? That is how we have survived so long. But that, my thought is that it also needs to be tempered by the gentleman, right? We do live in a society, as much as some of us would prefer that we didn't and we want to just live in a cabin in the woods and be a secluded hermit. We are designed to be social creatures. We are designed to be amongst other humans. And our ability to do that is what has gotten us to the point where we can have a conversation and over miles and miles apart and talk about these very philosophical things, right? And not have to worry about, man, hey, sorry, I can't chat. I've got to go stomp through the woods and hopefully shoot some squirrels and a deer so I can put food on the table. I don't have to worry about that. If we're hungry, I can run down to the Whole Foods, right? So our sophistication, our gentlemanly ability to be a civilization has got us this far, but it's also made us very comfortable. So we need to, for some of us, need to swing that pendulum back and not neglect and forget that primitive, primal, savage side that got us here. if that makes sense.
Totally, man. And as you're talking, I'm thinking of, I was listening to Jordan Peterson talk about this once, and he said that he felt like the most, and this is not verbatim, but basically he said like the highest form of man is, and the best form of development is also the same person. And the person has the most capability for good also has the most capability for evil.
Yes.
And he says that because you are weak and because you don't do evil things merely out of your inability to do it because you don't have the skill to do it, doesn't make you ethical or doesn't make you good. It makes you weak.
Right.
And so as you develop the personal capability and the capacity to do things, what you're talking about, to do what needs to get done, therefore your ethical character also develops, because now you harness the power to control that and use those things for good and do what needs to get done. And it's just a different way of view, especially, in today's, this may get political, but we talk about like, toxic masculinity, which I think the inability to get things done isn't admirable. It's not noble. Like,
impotence is not a desirable quality.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of men who unfortunately have fallen into the notion of like, man, if I effectively castrate myself, which is the highest form of impotence, both literally and figuratively, then now I can suddenly rise above, and I will be lauded for my high morals because look, see, I am, I'm not a threat or a danger to anyone. So, acknowledge me, right? Because sadly, that is what most people are seeking, right? And you can see that go the opposite direction, where a guy, is so focused on being so dangerous, right? And it's like, well, is that really useful? Like, yeah, if you're a soldier in war, for sure, man, you've got to do that. And you are going to be very effective at your job. But if that's no longer your mission anymore, it's okay to dial that back. And to do otherwise, you need to start thinking of like, okay, well, what's my motivation? Am I still seeking that glory and that recognition for what I used to be? I think that's, again, it's very problematic because, you're no longer evolving, right? If I still was Josh, the professional fighter, I'd have a lot of internal struggle because, man, I'm not fighting anymore. So if that's my identity, there's going to be some strong dissonance between what I believe I am and what I'm actually doing. And I'm never going to be happy. And kind of, so guys are looking for validation in a lot of different ways. And you can see opposite ends of the spectrum. You can see the impotent side, right, where they're not dangerous at all. And you can see the other end where they're far too dangerous. And neither one is ideal. And we talk about this idea of balance. You had mentioned that. And, it's an interesting term because I think perfect balance is not unattainable, but it's not desirable, because perfect balance means that you're static, you're not moving, right? If the scales are equally balanced, they are still, right? So I think more of a pendulum and an oscillation, right? Of depending on the need and the requirement, that's going to swing wherever it goes. I believe more of some flexibility, right? The mobility, right? I would say that equilibrium is maybe a better notion than balance, because balance confers a static state. Equilibrium is still in motion in my mind.
Got it. And so as you develop these different aspects of, and I know these terms in, and we'll talk about this. Do these principles also apply? I mean, is it gender specific, or these principles apply to anybody, which is basically like, hey, there's different parts of our lives that all need to be developed for us to reach our ultimate potential, whether it's our ability for self-development, self-awareness, our ability to perform a job as a parent, to be the best spouse we can be, to be really to be independent enough that if push comes to shove, we can get things done, to be interdependent with other people so that we can make the most of our social relationships, and be the best employee or boss or or whatever that is. Peter,
yeah, I mean, I don't think that personal growth and development is necessarily gender specific.
Yeah.
Right. And that is truly what we're talking about. Right.
Yeah,
I mean, I use the term savage gentleman to one, because it's cool, right? I think it's a catchy, marketing thing. And I think that it has strength and it has weight, but the concept of continually to improve different facets of your life as needed based off of the introspection of like, okay, where am I at? Where do I want to be? How do I get there? That isn't specific to men or women. I tend to speak more to the male experience because, that's kind of what
that's your
more comfortable with.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I can't really give a lot of advice necessarily on what it means to be a woman because I don't know a heck of a lot about that. But I do know that it never hurts to work on getting better at things. And that in itself really is the secret sauce, right? It's not that, okay, you need these 5 very specific savage and gentleman skills, and then you have it. It really, the secret, if there was such a thing, is not in of the skills itself. It is really just the process of learning and improving in a focused matter, not just, okay, man, I'm just going to pull a thing out of the hat. And now, looks like I'm learning Spanish. Just arbitrary. And this is why in some regard, our school system kind of fails, is because it focuses so much on learning these specific things, which can be useful, but really what we need to be teaching people is to just be better learners. How do I learn? How do I learn anything? How do I become a good learner? And if I can do that, man, the sky's the limit. I can pretty much accomplish anything. If I don't know how to learn, if I have to be spoon-fed everything, which is kind of the formula that we have set up, it's going to be really hard once I get, if I ever want to get out of that system, if I ever want to break that cycle, right? And some people are, I think, perfectly content to be there. And again, if whatever you're doing is working for you, by all means, keep it up. But I think I'm guessing just by virtue of the, that even the name of your show and what you guys are doing, most of your listeners are not necessarily content with the status quo. They have higher ambitions. And the way to achieve that, in my mind, is to be good at learning and good at figuring out what are the most useful things to learn at any given moment.
Hey, we'll be right back with our interview, but before we continue, I want to tell you about something really cool that Life Inner does. Now, you may have heard us talk about this in the past. We've brought it up on several different occasions, and I think it'd be really valuable for you to check it out. And what I'm talking about in particular are 2 events that Life Inner uses as a foundation to help people create a life and business they love. The first one is the Get a Life Getaway. Now, the Get a Life Getaway is our flagship event. We've been doing these things for over 12 years, have had over 10,000 people go through it. And the purpose of the Get a Life Getaway really is for you to figure out exactly what you want your life to look like. Now, you may think you know what you want your life to look like. I'll tell you after dozens and dozens and dozens of conversations with people, it becomes readily apparent that people really don't know what they want. And it's been said before, T. Harv Eker said this one. He said, the reason why most people don't get what they want is because they don't know what they want. And we see this all the time. So when you come to this event, you will learn specifically and exactly what you want your ideal, dream, perfect life to look like. And this is really important. Catch this. You'll have the action steps to get there. All right. This isn't pie in the sky, feel good approach to living. This is strategy. This is tactics. This is an exact action plan, a blueprint for your ideal life. We'll figure out how much that's going to cost you. Meaning what does your dream life actually cost you? How many hours are you going to have left in your schedule for work and for the things you want to do? How do you design your life so that you get to put the things on your calendar first that you want to do? And then we'll figure out how to make the money and design the business after that. Now, that leads me to the second part here, which is our Business Builder Workshop. Because at the end of the day, let's say you come to Get a Life Getaway and you decide that you want to work 15 hours a week. Well, that's awesome. Fantastic. But how do you do that? So now the Business Builder Workshop is a follow-up to the Get a Life Getaway. And what we do there is help you design the business in a way that gets you out of the day-to-day and that elevates you out of an operational owner to an actual business owner. So how can your business run without you if you choose to do that? How can you scale? What are the secrets to marketing to get you ahead of your competitors? We talk from A to Z how to run a successful business, how to automate, how to eliminate parts of your business that don't serve you, how to delegate. Peter, what do you think about this? What do you have to add?
Well, so how would they find out about that?
Good point. Go to lifevineyard.com to see our schedule. We do a handful of each of these events per year all over the country. And so if you want to join us, which I really, really, really want to strongly recommend you do, and I want to tell you, go to the Get a Life Getaway first, because you really need to know what your life is going to look like before you can set up your business to accomplish that. And you'll see our schedule of upcoming events. So lifevineyard.com, check it out. Well worth it. Let's get back to our interview right now.
Well, listen, I got a question for you, man, because this is a really powerful topic that you're talking about here. And sounds to me, at one point you mentioned about the whole identity thing.
Yeah.
And earlier in your life, I think your identity was savage, right? Mm-hmm. Now you're a family man, you have a daughter, wife, and I think there is a lot of it was a gentleman, right?
Yeah.
So there is a savage and there's a gentleman identity. And I think a lot of times what ends up happening is man will like, okay, I'm savage or I'm gentleman. So how you created identity so you're have this, you know what I'm saying? Like this balance, not so much the balance, but like not one or the other. Because if my identity is savage, holy cow, right? When my identity is gentleman, the other stuff doesn't work. How you create that?
Well, and so the whole identity thing can be a tricky notion because we can often get trapped in labels, right? If I create a label, I can be confined to that. And that's why we define savage gentleman in such broad terms. And it can vary from one person to another, right? And Jason may have his version, I may have mine, Peter, you may have yours. And that is all perfectly fine. And that was intentional, right? I don't want to create, any kind of mold specifically. I want to give people the tools to carve themselves into whatever sculpture they see fit to accomplish whatever goals they have is kind of my idea. And so it's easy to pick a label and stay within that. Mm-hmm. It's hard to expand beyond that. And it takes a concentrated effort. So I can easily, if I'm not careful, I can easily fall into one thing. It's super easy to slip into, small business Josh, and everything I do, every thought, every waking moment is centered around the business side of Savage Gentleman to the exclusion of all else. Right. And it's almost easy to justify because, man, do I really need to spend much time going to the gym? I spent the better part of my life, over half of my life has been spent training and working out day in and day out. I've got 20 plus years of athletic competition and training. Is it really going to bring a lot of value to my life to make sure I better hit the gym today, bro? Probably not. So, okay, I got to focus on my work. However, the problem with that is, and I've learned this through trial and error, if I go too long without expressing my savage side, without getting my heart rate up, without getting punched in the face and choking someone out, things start to get a little bit funny. And I don't feel well. Like my body, my psyche, my emotional state, and I think even to some degree, my spirit starts to suffer. And I find myself spiraling heading into an unhealthy and an unproductive state. So it's not that I need to be good at fighting, but I need to do these activities. I need to make a concentrated effort to find the appropriate frequency to do these things, to maintain that broader identity, if you want to call it that, of a savage gentleman, not just falling into one category or the other. But it takes effort. And that's the hard part, right? I have to be keenly aware of where I'm at and my emotional state. And okay, what's missing, right? What am I neglecting? Right. What aspect of myself that I need am I not fulfilling? And so to me, this is really truly the idea of self-care. I know people kind of throw that term around and it can have its own connotations. But man, if I'm really going to take care of myself, then I need to have some sensitivity as to where I'm at and where that path might be leading, and whether or not I need to course correct and how soon I need to do that. Because I know there's a point, if I fall off that ledge, it's really hard to get back. You know what I mean? I can miss working out for a few days, or, I don't have to have a hard workout every single day. But for me, if about much beyond a week, things start to get, off. And I don't know if that's a hormonal thing. I don't know, I don't know the science behind it. I don't know if it's just purely in my own head and I fabricated. It's a placebo effect. But I do know that, man, I mentally start to suffer if I neglect certain things for a while. So I've got to be proactive, and I've got to find, for me, I try to find the minimal effective dose to keep everything, operating as it should.
So listen, so I love that answer, because I think one of the big things that I'm hearing from that conversation as you're sharing is, whether it's savage or gentleman, the whole entire spectrum, not so much putting a label on yourself, but to more of like listen to yourself. Get very good at listening to yourself. And I think when it comes to man, that's an important aspect, because that applies to every facet of your life, whether you're a father, you're a husband, you're a man, you're whatever the case may be. Listening to yourself in those particular times, it's going to help you grow as a person to be able to take on whatever needs to be done.
Yeah. The tricky part with that is that, I think we tend to neglect the fact that we're a complete organism, right? We tend to live exclusively in our heads, and we tend to let our brain exclusively be the driver. And the brain, we let our brains, this one organ, which is a very useful thing, and we super need it. We let that control everything, and we kind of turn off or tune out some of the other aspects of the organism that I think are very informative. They give us a lot of feedback, but the brain wants to say, hey, I'm in control. I've got it all figured out. Just do what I say. And there's a lot of situations that we can't necessarily think our way out of. Sometimes we have to feel our way through it, which is not something that men and particularly savages like to talk about, this idea of feelings. However, and being sensitive. But I'll counter that with, it's like, well, dude, the most savage humans that have existed on the planet were highly sensitive. Their senses were so in tune. They could smell, game from away. They could hear incoming danger, right? They could feel the barometric pressure drop and know, oh shit, I better get somewhere where I'm not going to get caught out in the rain because I'm going to freeze to death and die, right? So these guys were highly, highly sensitive. And I think we've lost it. So they knew what their organism, what this human, what this meat tube that we occupy needed, and were able to navigate based upon that. I think we've gotten away from that, and that's led us astray. And it led our minds to take the driver's seat and get us to pursue things that the mind or the brain wants to do, which isn't always the best for our body. Again, our brain will tell us, man, you should eat that entire birthday cake because it is delicious. We're not doing our body any favors, right? But the way our brain has been wired to say, ooh, sugar, good. This is very efficient calories. If we listen to that all the time, we would have a problem, right? So sometimes we got to touch the stove to know that it's hot. We need to maybe one time eat an entire birthday cake to ourselves and then feel absolutely miserable. Write it down in our journal. Hey, this was a very bad idea. Don't ever do this again, you idiot. Know what that feeling is, and then don't do it. Learn from it. And we're going to make those mistakes. It's just a matter of, well, do we learn from them? And I think the problem is a lot of people aren't sensitive enough to correctly evaluate the feedback that they get from different things.
So, man, I love that. And so just talk to me a little bit about, this came up early on in our discussion, and you also kind of touched on it again here. if someone is basically not having the life they want, or they're not as happy, like you know, if they're not where they think they should be in life, what are some of the things they need to like start to do? Like, do you think it's an awareness thing? Like they're just not paying attention, or do you think they're just reluctant to address it? Are they just, they're not tuned into, like, should they journal? Like what are some things that people can start to do to figure out like where they need to improve and what they need to work on?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing that they need to figure out is actually how to be happy with themselves right where they're at, which seems counterproductive, right? And this is the hard part, because it's paradoxical. It's like, okay, well, all right, well, if I could figure out how to be happy right now, then I wouldn't need your advice, jerk. You know what I mean?
Right.
If I had that answer, but and so that also flies in the face of this idea of progress, where it's like, well, if I figure out how to be happy, then I'm content, I'm complacent, I don't need to do anything else, which is also, as we know, not true. But if we chase this notion of, if I could just, right, all I need to do, if I could just get my business to this point, if I could just get my fitness, if I could get my finances, if I could get my if, then everything would be fine. There's going to be a hole that you'll never be able to fill. That's always going to continue and exist. So until you can find some way, and I'm not saying that you're going to you have to achieve nirvana and just sit and meditate under a tree and you are at peace with the entire universe, right? It's a process. But if you can't find some way to be happy with the person, and what you've done so far in any way, shape, or form, it's never going to happen for you. So I think the first step is figuring that out. And for me, one of the best ways to do that is through gratitude, being grateful that you actually exist, finding some kind of way. And for some people, where they're at, because I've been there, that's really hard. When you're in a place where you no longer wish to exist, it's really hard to be grateful to be there. You're like, actually, I'd rather not. So, thanks for nothing, universe, God, however you want to attribute your existence, sorry. So figuring that out is tricky, but once you can do that, show some level of gratitude and appreciation and being content with yourself in some way, now you've got a foundation that you can build upon. Right. Mm-hmm. From that, now you can grow and expand, right? You can gain more experiences, which hopefully will feed more gratitude, more appreciation. And, the more things you do, the more you accomplish, the easier it is to be happy with yourself. You know what I mean? If I've sat and I have done nothing, it's a hard sell, man. It's a hard sell to change that inner dialogue and talk about how awesome I am. It's really easy to fall on the other end and just be super miserable because, man, I'm a lazy, good for nothing POS. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, I've only ever sat in my parents' basement and trolled people online for the past 10 years. That's my highest achievement. That's, anyone with a rational brain would have a hard time convincing themselves. It would be hard to find self-worth in that environment. And so, start small, but find something like maybe just stepping away from the keyboard, right? Maybe that's the win, right? Man, I'm really proud of myself because I didn't engage with this person. I could have totally, disemboweled them online. I could have got them so good, but I didn't. I took the high road. And that should make you feel some kind of way. And I'm just using that as an example, right? Yeah. Maybe I did a kind thing for another person and that made me feel some kind of a way. It's finding ways to convince yourself of your value because you have value. I have no doubt that every single human, it's my belief that every human being who has been put on this planet has value, whether they recognize it or have fulfilled it or not, right? It's there by sheer virtue of being here on this planet. you have a value, you have a purpose. Now you've got to figure that out. And I can't necessarily do that for you, but if you can start to make some headway down that path, I think that you'll find, man, that dark cloud will start to lift a little bit. The sun will shine a little bit more brightly. You'll hear the birds chirping. All of the, some of these things, and you're still going to have bad days. You're still going to feel like crap. You're still going to get down on yourself. I mean, I perhaps project this super positive, upbeat, kind of guy, but I am still way more brutal on myself than I probably need to be. And that's something that I'm working on. It got me to a certain point in my life. It can be a useful tool, but it's not the only tool. And I don't know that it's the best tool.
Dude, man, I love this topic and I absolutely love what you're doing, dude. I could talk about this forever. I do have
clearly so can I. Sorry.
This is amazing. This is super cool. I do have 2 questions. All right. Yes. First one, can I still be a savage if I don't have a beard?
Absolutely. You've got stubble. So
Josh, I didn't shave for 2 days for you, buddy.
I appreciate that.
That's what you. Now I'm not gonna. I was gonna say that's what you came up with, but
Peter, you're the last one. Peter grows like whiskers. He has like two like whiskers, and that's his nice. Hair growth.
I don't
that's
think
my savage part.
I don't think savagery is strictly relegated to facial hair or necessarily appearance, right? I mean, I think it's more of a mindset. It's an ideology that also needs to carry, like we mentioned before, a level of capability. You can't call yourself a savage if you're not actually capable of savagery. And I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark. There's a lot of dudes walking around that, would put savage on their resume, but have never come close to doing anything remotely savage in their lifetime. And again, you're welcome to do that, but you were probably in for a rude awakening, if ever that the necessity, to do that comes up.
Right. So I have a request actually to come this full circle here for this from the beginning of the podcast to the.
I think we cut Jason off though. He had 2 questions, and I
okay.
No, there was a reason why I cut him off because I know where he's going.
Nonsense. That's fair.
So I'm being savage right now, but anyway, my request is to come full circle to reenact that fight scene from years back. Come back together. You two duke it out.
Yeah,
I want to see how that works out. I would love to see that. I'll pay money to see that.
To sell it, we did like actual punching. Like I had to convince you, like, it's okay, man. I'm not made of glass. You can actually hit me.
Did he slap you like this? Is that what he did?
Man,
it was like this.
It was just patty cake.
Right. Well, and so listen, man, second question is, how do people find out more about this? If they want to explore this, they want to find out what you're doing, be part of it, like, and develop this, and they feel a calling towards this, where do they find that? How can they do that? Is there a way?
Well, no. Unfortunately, we broke the first 2 rules of Savage Gentlemen.
Never.
Yeah, by virtue of this podcast. No, we are available and accessible through pretty much all social media outlets. So obviously we have a Facebook page, Savage Gentleman Official, which is also the handle of our Instagram. So Savage Gentleman Official, you can find us on both of those places. We have our closed Facebook group, which is the League of Savage Gentlemen, and you can search for that on Facebook. And there's only 2 requirements. There's 2 questions that we ask that you answer with some earnesty, which is, what would you like to gain from the league, and what are you able to contribute? Because the idea, and this is where it's hard, because Facebook is Facebook, and most people have this notion of like, man, I'm just here to look at cool, super savage memes, bro. Like that's what it's about. And then I'm gonna roast liberal snowflakes, or I'm gonna stick it to boomers and conservatives, or whatever their deal is, whatever they get on the internet for, and that's what they view Facebook as. And it's certainly good at doing that, but I think that it also is a very useful tool in other ways of actually connecting people and having conversation. And if your only purpose on being on Facebook is to see how long it takes you to get thrown in Facebook jail, see how quickly you can go to Facebook jail, then I don't need you in the group. There's plenty of other places where you can post or meme or do whatever it is you like to do to get your jollies online. That's not the point of the League of Savage Gentlemen. The idea is to learn and grow and also help other people do the same, because some guys are at different places in life where, man, you've got a lot of experience. You have a lot of perspective to give and lend. We want that. We need that.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of guys that are like, man, I don't have anyone. My dad was out of the picture, or no one ever taught me, these certain key things. And where do I go? I didn't grow up hunting. Who can I talk to about getting started? Well, guess what? We have guys that are exceptional hunters. Or if you want to get into fighting, or you want to get into collecting, whatever it is, and these are superficial things. And then that conversation leads into deeper waters is the idea. So that you can find us there, answer the questions. If you're looking for memes, these are not the droids you're looking for. And it literally says that in the thing. And then lastly, probably most importantly, this is where I need to be better at business, right? You can go to savagegentleman.com, which is where you can actually buy our stuff if you are looking for items that are intended for either the savage or the gentleman, or someone who is ideally both.
Dude, love it, man. Love what you're doing. Thanks for taking time out to talk to us and be on the show, bro.
My pleasure, dude. I really appreciate you guys just letting me run with this thing and kind of just share this thing that I'm obviously pretty passionate about. And it's always nice to hear other people that it resonates. You kind of come up with this idea and you spend a lot of time in your own head mulling it over, and you're like, is this something that anybody else actually thinks or cares about? And so it's always good to hear like, no, I'm not the only one. So I appreciate you guys indulging me and engaging in this conversation. It was really cool.
Awesome stuff, man. Dude, that was awesome, man. I really enjoyed this episode, man. I think this might go down as one of my favorites. I just love the topic. I felt it just resonates with me so much. And I think especially in today's culture, like it gives permission to really develop yourself along several different areas in several different facets. And really the thing I took about Savage and Gentleman was not just forget about the words for a second, mm-hmm. but what I really think of is just being extremely well-versed and capable in many different areas of life. That's kind of what I take from it. Like, so Savage is someone who's you're capable of doing whatever it takes to get things done in any different part of your life. And you're not a victim. You're not somebody who has this attitude of, oh, woe is me. You go out and make things happen, but it's not in a way that's destructive to your life, but one that is enhancing of your life. And so you're getting good at relationships. You're getting good at, physical fitness. You're developing your ability to be a business owner. Like in every area of your life, what I really took from this is like, you're leveling up really in every part of your life.
Yeah. And it is a really powerful, not concept, because it's a reality in people's lives. And the thing is that one thing I love about this particular episode is when I asked him about the whole identity, because he brought it up. And he brought up, we put on labels, how we put on labels, not so much about the labels, but it's about who you truly are, listening to yourself. And when he talked about that, one thing that jumped out at me is here in Life on Air, we talk about writing out your vision, right? And we were writing out, what do we want to accomplish? What do we want to make happen in our life? What's the vision we want to live? And the next question that becomes for us is, who do I need to become in order to reach that vision? So from this perspective of the Savage Gentleman, there is both aspects that play into reaching that vision.
Yeah.
And I think when you start, every single one of you, whether you're a man or a woman, whoever on this particular episode listening to this, go and if you have a vision, read your vision and see what pops up right there, because there is a certain thing things that are going to pop up for you that's more savage or more gentleman and things like that, and ask the question, who do I need to become to reach that vision? And I think that is such a, powerful way of looking at life. And I love the fact that you said that gives a permission for us to, develop ourselves, because there is certain things that are missing in us, in the society and things like that.
Well, and yeah, dude. But it's not just permission. It's also a like a little kick in the butt that I think we have a moral and ethical responsibility to do that, because if you're unhappy, I love, this is another part of it that I really enjoyed. He's like, if you're not happy in some part of your life, you got to look at yourself and say like, well, ultimately it's probably me, or I can have a large effect on this. And so what am I going to do to improve my life? It's not waiting for somebody else to improve our life for us. It's being proactive. It's finding that thing that is suboptimal or that's contributing to a destructive pattern in our lives and eradicating that. It's about really grasping that and then changing it. And so I think I love that section as well, as where, it's basically a form of like empowerment, really, like that we have the power to make these changes. And as we develop this, it just makes us, and the other thing I love what he said too, is, speaking to your point of identity as well, is like, Josh is a pro fighter. Well, my guess, and maybe we should have asked him about this. I didn't think of it, but like, so my suspicion is that he was very capable in that one area, but as he started to investigate other areas of life that he probably wasn't as capable in, he had to probably go back to being a beginner in some area of life that he wasn't as well developed in, and had to start off. And, two things. One is have a humility to realize that, hey, this isn't something I'm really good at. I need to start over and be okay with that. Because I think sometimes, especially as you get, as you're really good in one area, sometimes it makes you want to stick in that area. Like you kind of mentioned this, like if you're only a savage, well, you're really comfortable there. You're really good at it, but it's not giving you everything you want. So you need to kind of, while you can draw from the confidence that you became good at something, use that confidence to give yourself the safety and the permission to go work on other areas you're not good at, and not be completely sucked up into the identity of that one aspect of life because you're missing these other things too.
Right. And that's, applies to every single area of your life, and especially relationships, relationships with your spouse, your kids, your parents, your loved ones, people in your life, business owners, partners, employees, things like that. Right. Yeah. And, developing both of these areas, those two spectrums, not so much these areas because we keep going back to the labels, right? Yeah. Yeah. But developing those two spectrums, I think, is going to be really powerful for anybody on this particular listening to this episode. So,
well, and the last thing I'd say on that is like the other part we didn't touch on is that as you do this, now you give permission to other people around you as well, because they see you. You're like, listen, we talk about this a lot in Life and Air. You're a model for other people in your life, whether you realize it or not. People are looking to you for guidance, for inspiration, for motivation. And as they see you developing and taking on new areas of life that maybe you struggled with in the past, or you weren't as good as you wanted to, or you're weak, or you didn't have mastered yet, and you start to investigate these things, you're giving other people the permission and the encouragement to do the same for themselves. And imagine the world we would live in if everybody had this increased self-awareness, if everybody was on this path of getting better and improving and leveling up. I think it would just be super awesome. And we give, especially with kids, right? We want to show our kids that would never stop learning. Like, I think that's super valuable for us as parents as well. And in many other places of life.
Right. Because like he said, he's got a daughter, just her birthday today, right? So he needs to develop those two areas for the daughter, right? And sons or whatever it might be. Listen, two more things that I have are this particular podcast. The challenge that I put out at the beginning of the podcast still stands. You find a video, send it over. I will send you a free book, Life on Air book, and the manual tool that will help you, the study guide that comes with it. I'll send it to you for free. I'll pay for the shipping and all that kind of stuff. So challenge still stands. Send it to peter@lifeonair.com, peter@lifeonair.com. And the second big thing that I got out of this podcast, that I just found out that, dude, you've been holding out on me. You've been holding out on certain things, like how you've been fighting.
Well, hey,
like,
I'm not going to. We can't.
With somebody,
there's more stuff if you, the listener, wants to find out, but you got to keep listening to the show, right? This stuff is going to be unveiled over time. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was awesome to talk with Josh, and I love what he's doing. So check out more and learn more about what he's doing if that appeals to you. If you want to be more part of the discussion and conversation for Life in Air, go on over to the Life in Air app and download that for free and be part of those discussions as well. And as always, we would love to hear from you. We want to hear your rating, your review, what you thought of the episode, how we can serve you better, and what we can do for you. So until then, go out and develop that savage part of your life. Go out and develop the gentleman part of your life. Become capable, level up, and awesome things will happen. We'll see you next time, everyone. Take care.